I think my world is basically like everybody else's right now. Oh, wow. Cool Beetle Cup, by the way.
Thank you.
I usually have a Beetle Cup, but instead I have this one today, which is kind of the mood for the world. It should be.
I love that.
Yep. Um, like everybody else, we are indoors here in Stockholm. It's not a mandatory lockdown like it is in other places in Europe and other places in the States. But for the most part, I'm doing sort of a self-imposed lockdown. I've been spending most of my time. This is my son's bedroom, which I've turned into now a recording studio and a film studio. So I've basically been doing nothing but putting out content to the world. I'm doing my best to get as many people playing guitar during this time while they're stuck indoors, start learning the guitar, do something constructive and with a lot of positive energy, and we'll see some results at the end of this. You know, I want people to come away from this lockdown and this quarantine actually knowing how to play guitar. That would be an amazing sort of goal for me to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we all have this time on our hands. It's like, what better time to learn, be productive while inside? But so you give lessons online, which is amazing because people can learn guitar online and from Ryan Roxie, which is so cool. So when did
Well,
this start?
Well, I've started a Kickstarter campaign that is basically going to be this series called the System 12 Guitar Method. And what it basically does, it revolves around the number 12 because there's very really cool things about the number 12 and the guitar and simple things. But there's only 12 notes in music with all the sharps and flats. There's only 12 notes total, only 12 actual frets on a guitar neck. So the guitar, I try to simplify it and make it easier to understand with this series. And we started the Kickstarter campaign to raise money for the final and the official version, but we have already out a beta test version that we're sending out to people that pledge right away. So basically, if you're at home right now, you could start learning guitar right after you pledge onto the Kickstarter. And like I said, 12 weeks about it's going to take. If you kind of really focus yourself, 12 weeks, you'll learn 12 songs and 12 riffs. You'll be able to, I mean, like I said, you'll be able to really have a good foundation for learning the guitar. It goes from beginning all the way up to intermediate. It gets into some advanced stuff a little bit later in the lesson series. But for the most part, it's your launch pad to start your guitar journey. And I think we've done a pretty good job with it. So go check it out if you have a chance.
So is that on like your website? Like how could one?
Exactly. The easiest way to go check out the Kickstarter campaign for me is to go to ryanroxie.com, and then right on the front page is this thing say visit Kickstarter. Click on that, and then pretty much you can hear me talking about in step by step how the System 12 came about and how we teach it and basically what we plan on doing with it. So it's pretty cool.
Nice. No, that is so cool because it's like they can learn personally, like from you. Like that's amazing.
Exactly. There's a lot of things that we do on the upper levels of the Kickstarter campaign, like because it's all set about, you know, on reward levels and stuff. The higher it goes, there are opportunities to do one-on-one Skype lessons with me and also get into I call it the Roxie Guitar Army, and we're building up this army of guitar players. And I see that you play an instrument as well. Is it bass or is it guitar?
Yeah, bass. I dabble in bass, a little guitar. So.
All right. Okay. Well, like I said, it's good for bass players too, because the whole idea is to get familiar with the guitar neck and the bass neck or whatever you want to call it. Just get familiar with it and know where all the notes are really quickly. Because, you know, all my gigs that I've been able to get over the years, you know, all my opportunities were always based upon jamming with people and being able to know something on the fly. It wasn't so much reading music. It wasn't so much learning tablature, even though we do teach those things in the System 12. What ours was more about was being familiar with where you are on the guitar neck, so that if someone calls out certain notes, you know exactly what they're talking about, and you can jam with people. You know, the hardest part about being in a band is being able to get along with people, and that's what I think is the most important part. People don't talk about it enough. Is like people skills is a big deal, and if you already know your instrument and feel comfortable with it, then that's one thing you don't have to worry about. It's just dealing with the other people in the band, which I'm lucky enough to be in a band where it has a lot of cool people in it, and we all know it starts from the top with Alice Cooper.
Absolutely. It's like you can tell, like, when you watch you perform, or like anybody perform, the chemistry, if it's good with the other bandmates, and that really does play an effect on the show. So it's very important for sure.
Thank you. Well, we've been a consistent unit. We've been pretty consistent for Alice. We're the longest running Alice Cooper band lineup since the original band. So
Wow.
that's kind of a cool achievement that we've had. And I think the synergy that we have with 3 guitar players playing, myself, Nita Strauss, Tommy Henriksen, and of course we have Chuck Garrick on bass and Glenn Sobel on the drums. And then we got this other guy singing for us. I don't know, you might have heard of him.
Well, yeah, that's my next question. I was going to go into this. I mean, you've played with some incredible musicians, obviously, Alice Cooper, Slash, I know you've toured with Motely Crue. So what I want to know is, do you have one specific tour or show that like sticks out to you, like a most memorable tour or show that you've ever played?
There's a lot of great moments in the history of being able to ride on all these guys' coattails, like, riding Alice Cooper's coattails and being sort of his right-hand guy for so many, over 20-something years. I've been able to see a lot of cool stages, a lot of cool moments. I'd say highlights, to be honest with you, because I did live in New York for a while. Playing Madison Square Garden was one of those venues I always wanted to play, and we were able to play that on the Motely Crue tour, and it was a big night for Motely. It was a big night for Alice Cooper, so that was kind of special to be a part of. The Hollywood Bowl that was in Los Angeles, again another place where I've lived, and then being able to play some of these bigger festivals. Rock in Rio was a huge one down in Brazil. The Wacken Festival, which is in Germany, which is about 80,000 people. Those types of gigs are so surreal. Even more surreal than the times we're going through right now. Those types of gigs, you just gotta go, is this really happening? So, but one of the biggest gigs for me personally wasn't with playing with other bands. It was playing with my own band, my own solo band that I had with my Swedish lineup. We called it Happy Pill. And we were able to open up for Kiss at the stadium here in Stockholm, Sweden. So it was a pretty cool moment for us, because here we were, just 4 guys, that had been rehearsing in our rehearsal studio just like a couple blocks away from this huge stadium, and then we actually played it. So it was fun.
Amazing. No, so many like milestones and huge moments in your career. So like, that's so cool. But I also want to know.
You appreciate them all. You really try to appreciate every single one, and not think that, oh wow, this is too good to be true. It's more like, this is really cool. How can I make it happen again? And if you can repeat that process instead of it going away, I think it tends to happen again and again. And whether it's one of my biggest guitar idols is Brian May. He came up on stage and played with us a few years back with Alice. And it was such a cool experience. I got to, hold the guitar. And then we just played another show with him last month before all this broke out. I guess it was 2 months ago when we were doing the Australia, New Zealand tour with Alice. We got to play a relief for the bushfires and that they were having, in Australia. Probably still are having them, but look, everything that's happened since then. But we played a stadium to relief for a charity relief, and we got to open up for Queen. So again, I got to hang out with some of my idols.
Some amazing moments. That's incredible. Well, I was going to ask, so who are some of your biggest like inspirations? Like when you first started playing when you were younger, like who made you want to start playing? Who inspired you?
Pretty much the posters on my wall. I had a bunch of rock posters on my wall, and I wanted to be those guys because they seemed to have a good time all the time, to quote a Spinal Tap quote. But they I guess bands like Kiss were on my wall. Cheap Trick was my biggest, sort of band that I wanted to be like. I had their album covers on my wall. I even have Motely Crue album, Too Fast for Love, their first album. I had some cutouts there. Who else? Stones. Beatles. My buddies always had these really huge posters back in the day. They used to make oversized posters. They don't really make them anymore, but they were like big Rush posters and big Led Zeppelin posters.
Right.
I see that you have some of the Beatles album on the back, or is that Stones?
Yeah, I have Magical Mystery Tour.
Yep.
I have a Mick Jagger solo album, She's the Boss.
Very
and then
cool.
I have Stones album up there.
All right. Well,
So
I'm a little more egotistical on my wall. I have my own albums that that I did, but I know those frames. Those are amazing. Yeah,
Thank
I get it.
you. But no, that's amazing. So how old were you when you started playing? Like, when did you start?
Well, there was a guitar lying around ever since I can remember. I think it was like those 6 or 7 years old. You don't really take it seriously. It's just on the couch and you just strum to it. And I would actually play air guitar even before that, or Tupperware drums, we call them. You know, we drum with wooden spoons on plastic lids and stuff like that. But I'd say I kind of took it seriously around 11, you know, and I said, this is what I want to do. I put it out to the world. Like, this, I think, is what I'm pretty good at, and I think I can just get better at it. And it took years, obviously, and still, that, you know, I'm still on that sort of upward climb to get there to where I want to be. And yeah, things do take time, but if you do something towards that goal every single day, it's definitely possible, and the world will listen to you eventually.
Of course. And I also read somewhere that your mom was a drummer in her school marching band. Is that true?
Yep, she was a drummer. My dad was a trumpet player in his sort of military band. He had a military background, so he played trumpet in that. I started with trumpet, quickly found that was not going to help me in my social life all that much. And then I switched to the drums, and then the drums actually were quite fun and got a lot of aggression out during those days. But then it was like, man, I have to sit in the back. I think I want to go more to the forward. I want to go forward to the front of the stage, guitar. Mm-hmm. So then guitar became sort of the weapon of choice. And then I've just been playing guitar ever since, and, you know, made that switch over with my solo records to fronting the band. But I go back and forth from feeling really comfortable just playing guitar to feeling comfortable being a singer as well. But I mean, when you have Alice Cooper as your lead singer, why would you want to sing? You know, it's just like, let him just perform, let him do his thing, and I get to soak up all the reflective glory of it.
So were your parents like the ones who influenced you to become a musician, or did it come naturally to you? Like, even if they weren't musicians, is this something you feel like you'd still...
My parents were always supportive, which I'm thankful for to this day. But I think it was my sort of decision that this is definitely something I want to do. And I left right out of high school. I lived in Northern California. I bailed for Southern California because that's where the music scene was. That's where those bands like Motely Crue was coming out. That's where those, you know, that's where that music scene was happening. And then eventually living down in Los Angeles, I became part of that hair metal scene that people talk about in the 80s with, you know, Guns N' Roses, LA Guns, Poison, Faster Pussycat. I was in a band at that time called Candy, which turned into a band called Electric Angels. But it was all part of that scene. And it was, you know, like I said, it was really good time to be a musician in Los Angeles. I have no idea what it's like today, but those days that I had, I wouldn't trade them for the world.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm sure like that was the time to like be on that scene, like such an exciting time in life. So that's amazing. And it's amazing that you knew you wanted to do this so young. Like, there's so few people who are like 11 and they're like, all right, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and just know it. It's like, you just knew. So, well,
there might be more people that know what they're good at and know what they want to do earlier, but we're kind of always told, oh, you can't do that, or it's really hard. It's really competitive. But guess what? I mean, if you do anything good in life, it's going to be competitive. Anything you do in life is going to have some sort of competitiveness to it. You have to like look at it, flip the script and look at it like, no, this is what makes me happy. This is what makes me feel like, even if I'm doing it, doesn't feel like a job. You know, there's things that go along with my job that some people would say, oh, wow, I couldn't do that. Like the amount of travel, you know, that I would have normally done in a normal 2 a year is quite extensive. And maybe people don't like doing interviews and talking in front of people and public speaking. Maybe that freaks a lot of people out. So they couldn't do it. But that's all part of the job for me. And I love it. You know, like I said, I enjoy doing interviews every single time someone wants to, you know, take the time to talk to me about my stuff. I'm happy to do that. You know, I do enough of talking about other people with my own podcast as well. I run a podcast called In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie, and I like interviewing people because I'm always getting something from the people that I interview. So hopefully, you know, if I can give you something, some sort of inspiration or some sort of information that says, yeah, I could do that, then I've done my job. You've done yours.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thank you so much for even sitting down and talking to me. This is like one of my first like official interviews, so this is amazing that I get to speak with you. Because I mean,
you're doing good. You're doing. I mean, I mean, you have it. It's all about, at least from my perspective of doing podcasts and doing interviews. It's always about making the person feel comfortable and letting them talk. You know, that's hard for me to do at first because I'm so used to seriously filling up every hole, whether it's on stage, and sometimes I talk more between the interviews or more between songs than the actual song is. But, you know, I've found that being an interviewer, I have to just bite my tongue sometimes and let other people talk. But being that you're interviewing me, though, let me run my mouth off. Blah, 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 blah.
Well, yeah, I was going to say it must be different actually being on the other side, interviewing other people. So how long have you been doing that podcast for and like interviewing people? We
started In the Trenches about, I don't know, 8 months ago or so. We had, I figured I could interview a lot of musicians and rock and rollers while I was on the road with Alice. As it turns out, it's kind of hard because, you know, with the Alice Cooper touring schedule, there is a very set schedule, and to fit those interviews in nooks and crannies is not so easy. So when we started having a little bit more time after the tour ended last year, I really dove into it. And then obviously, since we've all been stuck indoors now, I've really kicked it up a notch. So we've really been going overdrive. And like I say, I spend so much of my time in this room, either talking to someone via Skype or, you know, I've even had people come in to this room from Sweden and do some Swedish interviews one-on-one. But, you know, it's kind of therapeutic for me because, for one, again, I get inspired by every person I interview. And everybody, you know, you see these familiar traits that they all have. And one of the most interesting things that most people say above musicianship and learning your instrument and practicing and all that is that to be on time. Everybody's punctual. That's why I felt a little bit bad I was late for our interview today. So apologies for that. But yeah, I got a call from our bass player, and then I hadn't talked to him for a long time, Chuck Garrick, and he was telling me about what he's been up to. I hadn't talked to him since we all got back from Australia and New Zealand. So he's doing good. Bisto Blanco is out there, and, you know, they were one of the last bands to go out on tour before everyone got called back home. So,
yeah, no, it's fine catching up with an old friend. It's okay. Again, we all have so much time now, so it's literally fine. So no worries. But I also want to start talking about your solo stuff, which is fantastic, by the way. I've been listening to Nevermind Me like constantly. It's great. Man. So let's talk about that. Like, do you feel like some of the bands you've toured with had an influence on your solo stuff? Like, what influenced your solo stuff?
Wow. Okay, good question. Well, I decided to call it the Ryan Roxie because before I have made other solo type records under the names Roxie 77 or Dad's Porno Mag, or maybe it was Happy Pill. But this was Ryan Roxie because I wanted people to know that, hey, I'm a guitar player. Most of you know me from playing with Alice Cooper for almost 20 years now, or over 20 years off and on. But I also do my own thing. So, but you know my name from Alice, but I do my own songs, and you know me as a guitar player. Let's make a guitar-driven record. And it doesn't have to be one style of music. It can just be rock and roll. Because in my day, all my favorite albums had a spectrum to it. It wasn't all 10 of the same songs. So I tried to make basically a good variety of styles that are in my sort of wheelhouse of the type of rock and roll that I like. And the one consistent was it was all had guitar solos in it. 10 songs, 10 guitar solos. So even Nevermind Me, the one song you were talking about, which was one of the latest singles, I use it as a theme song for my podcast. And it's a totally different style than some of the other songs that are on the album, but they all sort of blend together with guitar.
Mm-hmm. They do. They really do. And do you have like one that specifically is like near and dear to you, one that's like really special to you or you're just super proud of? Like,
with this album, I said I was going to put out 10 songs and release 10 videos, and that's exactly what I ended up doing. There's 2 songs on the album that don't have their own separate lyric videos, but I made 3 lyric videos for Nevermind Me. You have to go online and sort them out if you want to find out the 3 different versions. So there are 10 actual lyric videos out there for this one album. So to call one out and say one's particularly my favorite, I can't really do that because every time I go back and watch one of these lyric videos that our guy Gustav Kronfeldt, who makes all our lyric videos, when I go and watch his work, I fall in love with the song again. So it kind of go, well, this is special, or this one is my little special song for this week. But at the end of the day, it's, they all come from somewhere inside us, and we put them out there, and thank goodness we had a good production team. We had good musicians playing on it. We had, Glenn Sobel played the drums on a bunch of the tracks. Tommy played on it. Also had, who else? So many good musicians on the album. I like to give the musicians credit as well on this solo album, because even though it's my name on it, the people that played on it really were responsible for the overall sound, plus the producers that we worked on. But like I said, guys from like Teddy Zigzag from Guns N' Roses, he played on it as well. My old drummer from Sweden, Anton, played on it. Seven, another drummer. So yeah, it was a good collaborative effort of musicians, but ultimately my solo record.
Yeah, no, and it's like, you're right. I guess they're all different and special in different ways, I guess. So it's hard to say, oh, this one's my favorite or that one's my favorite. And I'm sure you put, I guess, so much into it. So it's like they're all special in their own ways. So.
Oh, and we'll see what happens with the next album. Will it remain the same style of music? I'm not sure, because I feel pretty happy and content with what I put out with Imaginary Reality. Maybe it's time to move to another type of music that I do like and sort of get inspired by and is inside somewhere in me to achieve that. It's I don't want to make 10 of the same albums. Nobody does. That's what I always admire about Alice Cooper over his discography. If you listen to all the different records, there's so many different types of eras and so many types of different styles that he has on so many different records. I'd like to do the same eventually.
Yeah, I think that's great. Having like different influences from different genres, I think, is really important, and just incorporating that, and like you said, trying to keep it different, change it up. But
absolutely,
that's amazing. Thank you again so much for speaking to me. You've been fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, man. Well, you know what? I'm glad I got on one of the earlier episodes, because then when I come back for the 10-year anniversary and you've got all your, your Emmys and, all your awards, and you're on, hosting your own TV show, I say, hey, remember me?
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. I hope so one day. But thank you again so much.
Best of luck. All right, with everything, and let me know when it's out, and I'll do my best to give it a post. And like I said, if anyone wants to follow what I'm up to, obviously RyanRoxie.com, and hit on that Kickstarter button. That's the main place. But I'm pretty active on Instagram as well. So at RyanRoxie on Instagram, that's where you can find me. And thanks for listening. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and have a great one. Bye.
See you, Alexa. Have a good one. All right.
Take care.
You too. Bye. Bye.